What's the most humiliating moment you faced in public? 5 minutes before my life fell apart, I was on top of the world. Standing at the head of the glass conference room, I straightened my perfectly pressed suit jacket and watched Chicago's business elite file in. The Dream Corp executives, worth potentially millions to our firm, nodded respectfully as I greeted them by name. My boss gave me a thumbs up from the doorway. My presentation deck was loaded, my talking points memorized, my confidence unshakable, or so I thought. If you've ever had that nightmare where you're standing naked in front of a crowd, hit subscribe now. Because what happened to me was worse, and it was real. My name is Morgan. Until that day, I was the rising star at Apex Advertising, known for my meticulous preparation and unflappable demeanor. I'd spent 8 years crafting that reputation, climbing from junior copywriter to senior account executive through discipline and careful image management. Morgan never cracks under pressure, my colleagues would say. My boss had introduced me to the Dream Corp team as our secret weapon, the closer. I'd built my entire professional identity around being polished, prepared, and in control. The Dream Corp pitch wasn't just another presentation. Landing their business would mean a promotion, a substantial raise, and industry recognition. I'd spent weeks preparing, rehearsing until every word, gesture, and slide transition was perfect. That morning, I'd arrived 2 hours early to set up the conference room, a fishbowl in the center of our open concept office where everyone could see everything. I'd chosen it deliberately. When we won this account, I wanted witnesses. I had no idea I was setting the stage for my own public humiliation. Let's get started, I said confidently, clicking to my first slide. The projector displayed my desktop instead, including the chat window I'd forgotten to close. A private message from my colleague Alex filled the screen. Is Dream Corp's CEO wearing that ridiculous toupee again? Looks like a dead squirrel. The message I'd laughed at earlier now loomed 10 feet tall on the wall behind me, directly facing the CEO himself. His hand instinctively moved to his hair. The room went silent. That was just the beginning. What followed was a cascading series of disasters so mortifying, so completely devastating to my carefully constructed professional image, that for weeks afterward, I couldn't walk through the office without hearing whispers and stifled laughter. In the span of 20 minutes, I went from respected executive to viral office joke, from rising star to cautionary tale. But here's the twist. That humiliating public meltdown, the one I thought had destroyed my career and everything I'd worked for, ultimately gave me something I never expected. It gave me freedom. This is the story of the most humiliating moment of my life. How it broke me down in front of everyone who mattered professionally. And how, surprisingly, it led to the most authentic version of myself I'd ever known. I'd always been the type of person who checked things 3 times. My presentations were bulletproof. My appearance, impeccable. That morning was no different, or so I thought. I woke at 5 a.m. an hour before my alarm. Too wired to sleep, I rehearsed my pitch again in the shower while dressing during my commute. I'd chosen my most expensive suit, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, power outfit without being flashy. Professional, trustworthy. Exactly the image I wanted to project. Today's the day we make history, my boss Richard had said yesterday. No pressure. The Dream Corp account would add 30% to our agency's annual revenue. Their previous agency had been fired after a social media campaign disaster. We were one of 3 firms pitching for the business. Richard had chosen me to lead the presentation because of my unshakable composure under pressure. I arrived at the office at 7 a.m. The cleaning staff was still there, vacuuming between cubicles. I nodded at them as I passed, already mentally rehearsing my opening lines. The glass conference room sat in the center of our floor like a fishbowl, a design choice meant to emphasize our agency's transparency. Today, it would put me on display for all 50 employees, plus the executive team, plus the clients. I set up my laptop, connected it to the projector, and ran through the slide deck one more time. Everything worked perfectly. I arranged water bottles and company-branded notebooks at each seat. I adjusted the blinds so there wouldn't be glare on the screen. At 8:30, my team began arriving. Alex brought coffee for everyone, a thoughtful gesture that I'd thank him for later. Nervous? He asked, setting a large cup beside my laptop. I don't do nervous, I replied with a confident smile. It was my mantra, my brand. Alex laughed. That's why you're running this show and not me. I'd be a wreck. We chatted while waiting for others to arrive. The conversation drifted to the Dream Corp executives we'd met during the RFP process. That's when Alex sent the message about the CEO's toupee, the one that would soon be projected for everyone to see. I'd laughed and responded with a crying laughing emoji, a small, unprofessional moment I thought was private. By 9:45, the room was filling up. Our entire executive team, the creative directors, the account managers, all there to support but also to witness. The glass walls meant even those not invited could watch from their desks. I felt dozens of eyes tracking my movements. Richard arrived with the Dream Corp team at 10 a.m. sharp, 7 executives in expensive suits, led by CEO Gerald Hammond and his marketing director, Sophia Chen. Morgan, good to see you again, Hammond said, extending his hand. I shook it firmly, making eye contact, deliberately not looking at his hair. The team is excited to show you what we've developed, I said smoothly. As everyone settled in, I felt the familiar pre-presentation adrenaline, the good kind that sharpens focus rather than induces panic. I'd done this dozens of times. This was my element. But looking back, there were warning signs I ignored. The slight tremor in my hand as I reached for my water bottle. The 3 hours of sleep I'd gotten the night before. The fact that I'd skipped breakfast, running on nothing but caffeine and ambition. The pressure headache forming behind my right eye. Whenever you're ready, Morgan, Richard said. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and moved to the front of the room. Through the glass walls, I could see colleagues slowing as they passed, stopping to watch. This was my moment, my spotlight. Good morning, everyone, I began. Today, we're going to show you how Apex advertising can transform Dream Corp's market position. I clicked to advance to my first slide. Nothing happened. I clicked again. Still nothing. Just a moment, I said, maintaining my smile as I moved back to my laptop. That's when I noticed the chat window was still open, and that my laptop screen was being projected exactly as it appeared. Desktop, open applications and all, including Alex's message about Hammond's ridiculous toupee. I froze, finger hovering over the mouse, as I realized what everyone in the room was seeing. And that was just the first domino to fall. Time seemed to stop as Hammond's eyes narrowed, fixed on the projected message. The room went so quiet I could hear the air conditioning hum. My voice caught. I apologize for the technical. I frantically clicked to close the chat window, but in my panic, I clicked the wrong button and maximized it instead. Now the message filled the entire screen, along with my laughing emoji response. Someone gasped. From the corner of my eye, I saw Richard's face drain of color. Technical difficulties, I managed, finally closing the window. My hands were shaking now as I pulled up the presentation. The first slide appeared, our agency logo gleaming professionally against a dark background. Too late. Hammond cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a short break before you begin. No, I said too quickly. I mean, we're all set now. Please let me continue. I launched into my rehearsed opening, my voice higher than normal. Words tumbled out too fast. I could feel sweat forming at my hairline, threatening my carefully styled appearance. The Dream Corp executives exchanged glances. Sophia Chen's expression was unreadable. Hammond kept touching his hair. I advanced to the next slide, discussing market positioning. My mouth was moving, saying the right words, but my mind was in free fall. Did I just destroy months of work with one undeleted message? Would Richard fire me on the spot? How many people outside the glass walls had seen the projection? Focus, Morgan. Recover. You can still save this. I took a deep breath and forced myself to slow down. By the third slide, I was finding my rhythm again. The content was strong. The strategy was solid. Maybe I could overcome the initial disaster with sheer professionalism. Then my laptop pinged loudly. Another message from Alex. OMG, did everyone see that? I'm so sorry. It flashed briefly in the corner of the projection before disappearing. But everyone saw it. I pretended not to notice and continued discussing consumer demographics. Sweat was now trickling down my back beneath my suit jacket. The headache intensified, pounding behind my eyes. As you can see from this graph, I said, gesturing to the projection, your current market penetration has plateaued, but our strategy would open new— Excuse me, Hammond interrupted. Is that data from last quarter or this quarter? A simple question. One I knew the answer to, but my mind went completely blank. The data is— I stared at my own slide, unable to process the information I'd created myself. The silence stretched. Someone coughed. I believe it's from Q2. Richard jumped in. Morgan, would you confirm? Yes, I said gratefully. Q2, thank you. I reached for my water bottle, needing a moment to collect myself. As I tilted it toward my mouth, my hand trembled violently. Water sloshed over the rim, splashing onto my laptop keyboard. No, I gasped, grabbing for napkins. Too late. The laptop screen flickered, then went dark. The projection disappeared. I can fix this, I said, dabbing frantically at the keyboard. It's just a little water. But it wasn't just a little water. In my panic, I'd knocked over my coffee cup too. Dark liquid spread across the table, seeping into my laptop, my notes, and the edge of my suit jacket. Let me help, Alex said, jumping up with more napkins. As he rushed forward, he bumped the table, sending my coffee cup rolling toward the Dream Corp executives. Hammond and Chen pushed back their chairs just in time to avoid the brown liquid cascading over the edge. If you've ever watched a disaster unfold in slow motion, unable to stop it, hit that like button and share your experience in the comments. Sometimes public humiliation connects us in the most human ways. I am so sorry, I stammered, moving around the table to help clean up. My heel caught on the projector cord, yanking it from the wall. The room plunged into dimmer light. Whispers and stifled laughter came from outside the glass walls. Colleagues were gathering, watching the spectacle unfold. My public humiliation had an audience. Perhaps we should reschedule, Chen suggested, her voice cool and professional. No, please, I insisted, growing desperate. I have backup notes. We can continue without the slides. Richard shot me a warning look. I was making things worse, but I couldn't stop. Everything was spiraling out of control. My career, my reputation, my carefully constructed image, all disintegrating in real time. I reached into my bag for my backup notes, knocking my water bottle over again in the process. More liquid, more frantic dabbing with now sodden napkins. Morgan, Richard said firmly, let's take 15 minutes. I straightened up, clutching damp papers. My expensive suit was now stained with coffee. My face felt flushed and sweaty. My breathing was becoming shallow. I can continue, I insisted, though my voice cracked. I know this presentation inside out. That's when I felt the first unmistakable symptom of what was coming next. A sensation I'd never experienced in a professional setting. Pure, unadulterated panic. It started with a tightness in my chest, a subtle constriction that quickly intensified until each breath became a conscious effort. As I was saying, I continued shuffling my wet notes, our strategy focuses on 3 key areas. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. The words on the page blurred. I blinked hard, trying to focus. The first area is... I paused, suddenly unable to remember what came next. The information I'd rehearsed countless times had vanished from my mind. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Was the air getting thinner? I tugged at my collar, which felt inexplicably tight. Morgan? Richard's voice came from far away. Are you all right? I'm fine, I said automatically. Just give me a second. But I wasn't fine. My heart was racing now, pounding so hard I was certain everyone could see it through my coffee-stained jacket. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I gripped the edge of the table. Perhaps we should take that break now, Hammond suggested, his earlier annoyance replaced with something that looked uncomfortably like pity. No, I said too loudly. I can do this, I just need to... I tried to take a deep breath, but my lungs seemed to have shrunk. Instead of air, I got a strange squeaking sound that echoed in the quiet room. The whispers outside the glass walls grew louder. More people were gathering. Phones were out. Were they recording this? The thought sent another wave of panic through me. I felt a bead of sweat roll down my temple, then another, and another. My carefully applied makeup was surely ruined. I could feel mascara stinging my eyes. Water, I gasped, reaching for a bottle that wasn't there. I'd knocked it over already. Alex quickly handed me his. My hands shook so badly that when I tried to unscrew the cap, water splashed onto my already stained shirt. That's when the most mortifying part began. As I set down the bottle, I felt a sudden pop at the back of my skirt. The sound was small, but in the silent room, it might as well have been a gunshot. The seam of my skirt had split. I'd lost weight preparing for this presentation, skipping meals due to stress. The suit I'd had tailored months ago now hung differently on my frame, and the awkward movements of cleaning up the spilled coffee had been too much for the stitching. I felt the cool air on the back of my thigh and knew immediately what had happened. My face, already flushed, burned hotter. "Excuse me?" I whispered, backing toward my chair, trying to position myself so no one would see. But the damage was done. I caught a junior account executive outside the glass wall covering her mouth, eyes wide. She turned to whisper to her colleague. They were all watching, all witnessing my complete professional disintegration. My vision began to narrow, dark edges closing in. The pounding in my chest intensified until it was all I could hear. My breathing came in short, shallow gasps. "I think Morgan needs a minute," someone said. I tried to respond, to insist I was fine, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, a strange, choked sound escaped my throat. "Morgan?" Richard was beside me now, his hand on my shoulder. "You're having a panic attack. It's okay. Just breathe." A panic attack? Impossible. I didn't have panic attacks. I was the composed one, the professional, the closer. But my body disagreed. My legs felt weak, threatening to buckle. The room spun lazily around me. My gasping breaths were now audible to everyone. "I can't," I wheezed, clutching Richard's arm. "I can't breathe." "Yes, you can," he said firmly. Slowly, in and out. But I couldn't control it. Years of suppressed anxiety, of maintaining a perfect facade, of never allowing myself to crack, it all came crashing down in that moment, in that glass conference room, in front of everyone who mattered professionally. I was dimly aware of Chen asking if they should call an ambulance, of Hammond standing awkwardly by the door, of Alex hovering nearby, his face stricken with guilt over the message that had started it all. And beyond the glass walls, the growing crowd of colleagues, their expressions ranging from concern to morbid fascination. Phones were definitely out now. My humiliation would be documented, shared, remembered. "I need to get out," I gasped, stumbling toward the door, one hand holding the split in my skirt closed. Richard tried to guide me, but I shook him off. I didn't want help. I wanted invisibility. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. I made it to the door before the dizziness overwhelmed me. I leaned heavily against the frame, aware that I was now fully visible to the entire office floor. "Give her space," Richard commanded the onlookers. But it was too late for dignity. As I pushed through the gathered crowd, I heard whispers, saw phones quickly lowered, caught expressions of shock, embarrassment, and, worst of all, pity. The bathroom seemed miles away. Each step was an eternity of awareness of my disheveled appearance, my gasping breaths, the hand clutching my split skirt, the tears now flowing freely down my face. I finally reached the bathroom door and practically fell inside, locking myself in a stall where I slid to the floor, no longer caring about the state of my expensive suit. There, curled on the cold tile of the company bathroom, the rising star of Apex advertising completely shattered. And everyone had watched it happen. I don't know how long I stayed curled on that bathroom floor. Long enough for my breathing to slowly normalize. Long enough for the worst of the dizziness to pass. Long enough to transition from acute panic to a hollow, aching humiliation. Eventually, there was a gentle knock on the stall door. "Morgan?" It was Lisa from HR. "I've brought you some things." I couldn't respond, couldn't face anyone yet. "I'm leaving a bag by the door," she continued. "There's a change of clothes from the lost and found, some water and tissues. Take your time. When you're ready, Richard has arranged for a car to take you home." Her footsteps retreated. I waited until the bathroom door closed before slowly unlocking the stall. The bag contained sweatpants, a company t-shirt from some team building event, and a cardigan that had probably been forgotten in a conference room. Nothing matched. Nothing remotely resembled my usual professional attire, but they were clean and intact, which was more than I could say for my ruined suit. I changed slowly, avoiding the mirror. I knew what I'd see: smeared makeup, tear-stained cheeks, the physical evidence of my complete breakdown. When I finally forced myself to look, it was worse than I'd imagined. I barely recognized the person staring back at me. This swollen-eyed, blotchy-faced stranger in mismatched casual clothes couldn't possibly be Morgan Chen, rising star, the closer, the one who never cracks under pressure. I splashed cold water on my face and tried to repair the damage, but it was useless. There was no hiding what had happened. The real question was, how would I leave the building? The same glass walls that had displayed my humiliation now made it impossible to escape unseen. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Car waiting at the side entrance. Take tomorrow off. We'll talk when you're ready. The side entrance. At least he was trying to preserve what little dignity I had left. I gathered my ruined clothes, took a deep breath, and opened the bathroom door. The hallway was mercifully empty. I kept my head down as I hurried toward the side exit, but I couldn't block out the sudden hush that fell over the office as I passed. I could feel dozens of eyes tracking me, could almost hear the thoughts behind them. There goes Morgan. Did you see what happened? Complete meltdown. Career suicide. If you've ever felt like everyone was talking about you behind your back, only to discover they actually were, share this video. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in our humiliation helps us bear it. The car ride home was a blur. I stared out the window, numb, as Chicago's skyline slid past. The driver, sensing my state, didn't attempt conversation. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was blowing up. Texts from colleagues expressing concern, voicemails from Richard, an email from Sophia Chen that I couldn't bring myself to open. And then I saw it, a notification from the company's internal messaging system. Someone had shared a photo. With shaking hands, I opened it. There I was, mascara streaked down my face, coffee stained across my once immaculate suit, visibly gasping for air as I clutched the conference room doorframe. The caption read, "When Monday hits harder than expected." It had already been shared dozens of times. I threw my phone across the room. For the next 24 hours, I didn't leave my bed except for absolute necessities. I called in sick the following day, then the next. I couldn't face them, couldn't walk back into that office where everyone had seen me fall apart. My phone continued to buzz. I ignored it all. On the third day, curiosity and dread finally compelled me to check my work email. There were dozens of messages, but one subject line made my stomach drop. DreamCorp presentation recap. It was from Richard to the entire executive team. I opened it, bracing myself. Team, as you know, we experienced some unexpected challenges during Monday's presentation. I've spoken with DreamCorp. They've requested we reschedule with a different team lead. Alex will be taking over the account. Morgan will be taking some time to focus on other projects. I'd been removed from the biggest account of the year. The message was clear. I was no longer trusted with high-profile clients. 8 years of building my reputation, gone in 20 minutes of public humiliation. I closed my laptop and stared at the ceiling, facing a question I'd never had to consider before. Who was I, if not the unflappable professional I'd pretended to be? A week passed, then 2. I returned to work because I financially couldn't afford not to, but nothing was the same. My desk had been moved from the open floor to a corner cubicle near accounting, away from clients' sightlines. My project list had been quietly revised. The high-profile accounts were gone, replaced with internal work and small, low-risk clients. No one mentioned the incident directly to my face. Instead, there were awkward smiles, overly cheerful greetings, and conversations that died when I approached the break room. Worse than the whispers were the careful omissions, meeting invites that no longer included me, strategy sessions I wasn't called into, client dinners I wasn't invited to. I had become a professional ghost, present but not acknowledged, there but not counted. The photo from that day had circulated beyond our company. I discovered it on an advertising industry forum with the caption, "When the pitch goes south." Former colleagues from other agencies had seen it. College friends texted asking if I was okay. My humiliation had escaped the glass walls of our office and gone semi-viral in our industry. I started having nightmares about glass rooms, about being watched, about drowning in coffee while people took photos. I'd wake up gasping for air, the panic attack replaying itself in my subconscious. During the day, I went through the motions. I completed my assigned tasks. I ate lunch alone at my desk. I left exactly at 5 p.m., no longer staying late to impress anyone. The worst part wasn't the professional setback. It was the loneliness. I'd built my entire social life around work. My friends were industry colleagues. My conversations revolved around campaigns and clients. My identity was so entwined with my career that as one crumbled, so did the other. On a Friday evening, 3 weeks after the incident, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment, scrolling mindlessly through social media. An ad appeared for a meditation app promising stress relief and anxiety management. I laughed bitterly, a little late for that. But then I paused, thumb hovering over the screen. Was it too late? Or was it exactly what I needed? I'd spent years suppressing stress, ignoring anxiety, pushing through exhaustion, all to maintain the perfect professional image. And where had it gotten me? Collapsed on a bathroom floor while colleagues took photos. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Team drinks tonight at Murphy's. Would really like to see you there." My first instinct was to decline. The thought of facing everyone socially made my chest tighten, but something stopped me from typing my usual excuse. Maybe it was the rock-bottom realization that I couldn't fall any further. Maybe it was simple loneliness. Or maybe, somewhere deep down, I was tired of hiding. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my TV. Who was I trying to protect now? My reputation was already in tatters. My carefully constructed image had already shattered. What was left to lose? What if, I whispered to my empty apartment, I just stopped pretending? The thought was terrifying and strangely liberating. I picked up my phone and texted Alex back, "I'll be there." Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not the panicked tears of a public meltdown, but quiet, cleansing tears of release. When I finally stopped, I felt lighter. empty, but in a way that had room for something new. I didn't know it then, but walking into Murphy's that night, facing my colleagues not as the perfect professional I'd pretended to be, but as the flawed, humbled human I actually was, would be the first step towards something unexpected. Not recovery, transformation. Murphy's was packed when I arrived. Friday happy hour in full swing, the bar filled with advertising professionals unwinding after the week. I almost turned around at the door, but Alex spotted me and waved me over to a corner booth. "You came," he said, genuine surprise in his voice. "I saved you a seat." The conversation at the table stuttered as I approached. Colleagues who hadn't spoken to me in weeks suddenly became very interested in their drinks. "Hi," I said simply, sliding into the booth. An awkward silence followed. No one quite knew how to act around me anymore, the former rising star who'd had a very public fall from grace. "I'll get you a drink," Alex offered, escaping to the bar. I sat there, acutely aware of the sidelong glances, the whispered comments. My old self would have maintained perfect posture, kept a slight professional smile, pretended not to notice. But I was tired of pretending. "It's okay," I said suddenly, addressing the entire table. "You can talk about it. Yes, I had a complete meltdown in the Dream Corp meeting. Yes, it was humiliating. And yes, I'm still mortified about it." Their shocked expressions almost made me laugh. "Morgan, no one's judging you," said Tara, a copywriter I'd barely spoken to before. "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. Because that photo made quite the rounds. More uncomfortable shifting. "I deleted it as soon as I saw it," someone offered. "I reported it to HR," added another. Alex returned with my drink, a double whiskey neat. Not my usual careful glass of white wine. "Thought you might need something stronger," he said with a small smile. I took a sip, feeling the burn. "Thank you, for the drink and for the invitation. I know I haven't been approachable lately." "We've missed you," he said simply. Something in his sincerity cracked my remaining defenses. "I don't know who I am anymore," I admitted, surprising myself with the confession. "I spent so long being perfect professional Morgan that I don't know how to be whatever I am now." "Human?" Tara suggested. "Because that panic attack? Most relatable thing you've ever done." I stared at her, confused. "Morgan, we were all terrified of you before," she continued. "You never showed weakness, never seemed stressed, always had everything under control. It was intimidating." "But I was a mess inside," I said quietly. "Always anxious, always afraid of making a mistake." "We all are," Alex said. "We just hide it better on some days than others." If this story is resonating with you, please subscribe to hear more authentic stories about finding strength in our most vulnerable moments, and hit that notification bell, because the real transformation is just beginning. That night changed everything. Not immediately, not dramatically, but fundamentally. For the first time in my professional life, I stopped performing and started connecting. I learned that Tara had anxiety too. That Alex had bombed a presentation so badly 2 years ago that he'd considered changing careers. That everyone had their own version of my conference room meltdown, just not as publicly visible. The next Monday, I approached Richard's office. My hands were shaking, but this time I didn't try to hide it. "I'd like to talk about my role here," I said. "And I'd like to be honest about some things." We had a 2-hour conversation, the most authentic of my career. I acknowledged the pressure I'd put on myself, the unsustainable standards, the anxiety I'd been hiding. I also outlined my strengths, my genuine passion for the work, and my desire to rebuild, differently this time. Richard listened, really listened. Then he said something unexpected. "We don't need you to be perfect, Morgan. We need you to be effective. And sometimes that means being human enough to connect with clients as people, not just accounts." Over the next few months, I rebuilt my professional life from the ground up. I started seeing a therapist for my anxiety. I took a course on mindfulness. I learned to recognize the physical signs of stress before they escalated to panic. Gradually, I was given more responsibility again. Not the same high-pressure accounts, but different ones. Clients who valued authenticity over polish. Projects that required emotional intelligence as much as strategic thinking. 6 months after my meltdown, something remarkable happened. Dream Corp fired the agency they'd hired instead of us. Sophia Chen called Richard directly. "We want to talk again," she said. "But we want Morgan to lead the conversation." "Are you sure?" Richard asked me after relaying the request. No pressure either way. The old Morgan would have immediately said yes, desperate to prove herself, to reclaim her former status. The new Morgan took a moment to consider how it felt in her body. There was excitement, yes, but not desperation. Interest, but not obsession. "Yes," I said finally, "but I'd like to approach it differently this time." 2 weeks later, I sat across from Hammond and Chen again. No PowerPoint, no perfectly rehearsed pitch, just an honest conversation about their needs and our ideas. "What happened to you?" Chen asked afterward. "You seem different," I smiled. I stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to be present. Turns out that's actually more effective. Dream Corp signed with us the following week. If this story has taught you anything, please hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I share these painful experiences so others might recognize that sometimes our most humiliating moments aren't endings, they're beginnings. Sometimes falling apart publicly is the only way to rebuild authentically. The glass walls of our office haven't changed. People can still see everything. The difference is, now I have nothing to hide.